Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's a live discussion of the Star Trek Discovery Season 1. I'm joined here by Akton Tamko. Akton, thanks for joining me. As always, talk about Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
Of course, great to be here as always, Mark, and I'm looking forward to talking about Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
Cool. So let's just jump in and get our overall thoughts of season because we did this mid-season discussion at the end of the first half of the season. I think, judging by both our videos, I think both of our opinions have sort of gone up since the second half, and I think that generally speaking that seems to be the case, that a lot of people who weren't necessarily on board with Discovery in the first half have gotten more on board during the second half, but there's still a lot of haters out there, which, fair enough. But so what were your overall thoughts on season 1 as a whole?
Yeah, there are still a lot of haters. I got a guy on one of my reviews just the other day saying, "Well, I quit watching after episode 9," and the reviewer's like for episode 11. So why are you even on there? I was like, "Discovery is terrible and this sucks," and blah blah blah, and going on and on and on. And I just don't. I don't know what people were expecting. Were they expecting Next Generation season 3? I mean, were they expecting like the best Star Trek has ever had? Because I wasn't. I honestly was expecting it to kind of suck, and it didn't. So my bar was very low. I just was not really expecting much out of it, and it far exceeded my expectations. And I would go, and I've said this before, it is the best season 1 of any Trek series, in my opinion. Now, these season 1s are not that great. So is it one of the better Trek seasons overall? No. But I think it was successful as a first season of a Trek show. And if Trek history is any indication, then it's going to get better from here. And if it gets better from here, if, like, for example, they take the best of season 1 of the we'll talk about this, but the Mirror Universe was probably the best part of season 1. If they can take that quality and carry it forward, I think this is going to be a great show. So overall, I'm very pleased, and I'm pleased with the character stories. You and I both talked about this in our reviews, that Michael Burnham have a very good character arc, very well developed, with a very good ending. So that's what I look for in a good story, is a very well-developed character with a very good ending at the end of the season. And I'll also say that Star Trek Discovery truly tried to go where no other Star Trek series has gone before, which is what I wanted. Like, we're used to just having the one captain, and the captain is the star of the show, where they had 2 different captains. The first one died the first couple episodes, and the other captain turned out to be from the Mirror Universe, and then we get the original captain back from the Mirror Universe. I mean, no other Star Trek show has done anything like this, and I hope they continue to break new ground and do things differently than previous Star Trek shows. So I think first season was a success, even though there are flaws. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about some of the flaws too. And you and I both have complained about the Klingons to death, that those aren't really Klingons. So I'm not saying it's perfect. It definitely had a lot of faults, and some of the hate is justified. But overall, for season 1, I thought it was a success, and I think it's going to get better from here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of that. I do agree, like, that it is Star Trek Discovery is one of the things it does really well. Is, as you says, it's different. It's taking Star Trek in a new direction. It's doing different things, and apparently, like, some of these people complain and prefer the show The Orville, which I do like that show, but as a comedy show. If they'd slapped the name Star Trek on there, I would have been like, well, they're just rehashing every single like story from the Next Generation in the original series. And if we actually did get a new Star Trek series that had the name Star Trek, and it was just rehashing, had like the same format, captain on the bridge just sitting there being blah blah, and rehash the same plots of that we've seen before, then I would paint it as a failure. I would say it sucked. And so I think Discovery succeeded in the fact that it's taking Star Trek in new directions, it's trying a serialized storyline, and it's taking aspects of Star Trek that we have seen but not focused on. Like we've seen wars. Well, if DS9 focused on a little bit and stuff like that, but Discovery is doing it in sort of new and fresh way. We've seen wars, we've seen asshole captains, and we've seen all this other stuff, but we never focused on it before. And I think that's interesting because what I want out of my Star Trek personally is not a rehash of what we've seen before, but I want them to expand the universe. In fact, I'd be happy if the next Star Trek show, if there is one, doesn't even focus on the Starfleet vessels, something completely new, or even the space station is something completely different. I want to explore this universe, and I think that Discovery does a pretty good job of it. Now, my feelings on season one as a whole is, before season one started, there was a lot of production, the news, like there was a lot of delays. There was Brian Fuller dropping out, and there seemed to be a lot of issues, and a lot of people were taking that as a sign that Discovery would suck. And I'm very happy that it didn't suck, but I think I can definitely see where some of these issues brought up, because I think my feelings on, if I look on season one as a whole, I think that it has some pacing issues. I think there's a lot of like incomplete things that weren't maybe set up as well as they could have been. And I think a lot of that did have to do with the behind the scenes issues that they were having. And plus, I do think they were put with a pretty impossible task, because on the one hand, they were given like millions of dollars. No other Star Trek show in existence of Star Trek has given much money, even comparatively speaking, as Discovery was. And the reason because of that is because of the reboots. So there was some expectation that they would draw in that reboot audience. So they had to at least have the aesthetics and some sort of action feel of the reboots. But on the other hand, there was a strong expectation, I think even from general audience, not just fanboys, that it keep to the feeling of real Star Trek shows, which is why it's set in the prime timeline. So it's this tightrope that they had to balance between these two forces. And when you think about that overall, I think they did a good job. But I do kind of see where they were struggling a bit. And I do think, and that's my hope, and I really believe this, and we'll talk more about our thoughts of season 2 by the end of the video, but it's my strong feeling that season 2 will be better, because they had this trial run. They can work out the kinks and work it out from here. And as much as I did like season 1, you know me, I would say season 1 of Voyager was better for me personally. But was this way better than like season 1 of Enterprise and Next Generation? The whole like leaps and bounds better. And it was better in Deep Space Nine season 1 as well, but leaps and bounds better in Enterprise and Next Generation season 1. But I don't think it was as good as, say, season 3 of Enterprise, because season 3 of Enterprise to me felt more controlled. Like it gelled and it flowed better, even though there were some shitty episodes there too. Overall, when I look at the season as a whole, I think the story gelled more, whereas here I think there were some pacing issues where something weren't handled as well as maybe they could have been.
Yeah, excuse me, I agree with that. I mean, I would say season 3 of Enterprise was actually a pretty good season of Star Trek, and it was definitely better, and it took them 3 seasons to get there. So I'm looking at Discovery where it is in season 1 and projecting out to season 3. I think it could be a really fantastic show if they fix some of their issues, some of those pacing issues that you mentioned, which I agree with. If they're able to improve, like every Star Trek show has, even Enterprise did, which had a horrendous first season, and ended up having a pretty great third season, and not a bad fourth season either. So if they can improve, I think it has potential to be a really good show. But just looking at the first season, no, it's not one of the best seasons of Star Trek overall, but I never expected it to. I think people might have had too high expectations. Some of the hate I don't know what they were expecting. Like they were expecting some perfect TV show with no flaws and so it was going to flow perfectly. I mean, no Star Trek show does that in the first season, so I don't know why anyone would expect that. So I just look at it as a show with a lot of potential, and hopefully they can correct some of the mistakes from season 1.
Now, I hate putting words in people's mouths, but judging, I at least feel there's at least a small bit of the fan base who complained about season one that if from what they're saying to me, I gather that what they really wanted was a carbon copy of Next Generation. That they pretty much want a Next Generation redone over again, but with a new cast or whatever. And if that's what you want, fair enough. I'm not here to tell you what's good or not, but I'm just saying what you want out of Star Trek is very different than what I want out of Star Trek. In fact, I would make the argument that had they done that, it wouldn't be successful, and Star Trek needs to grow, needs to advance, needs to be new and different in order. Otherwise, it's just going to die because most of the general audience, I don't think, wants a rehash.
Yeah, and I would hate it if they just did a rehash of the same old thing. What I wanted more than anything out of this new Star Trek series was something fresh and new, and I think we got that. And but within still taking some of the core elements of Star Trek were still there. It was still Star Trek, but we got a fresh take on it. I mean, I love the ever-changing captains. I love that the main character was not the captain. I love that the main character was heading to prison. I mean, these are things that you won't do in normal Star Trek shows. And I hope that they continue to just be even more innovative and do more original things as the show continues. And I would hate it if, like, season 2, they were like, oh, okay, let's just make this exactly like Next Generation now. I would hate it. So I want them to continue on this path and become even more creative than they were in the first season.
Now, getting more into some of the negatives, and I do want to talk about this in our overall discussion of season one, is some of the negatives I think might be. And there's a review that I watched who were very negative on the show, and I thought they were being too harsh. But some things that they said I agreed with, and I was like, okay, I can see your point of view there. And one of the things that really struck me is that they said they felt that season one had no, or that Discovery as a whole, the show as a whole, has no real feel to it. Like Next Generation original series had a clear theme, going out and explore. Next Generation took place 100 years later. Deep Space Nine is a station set on the frontier, and it deals with the politics of the areas as well as the frontier, the visits there, and Voyager, ship trapped in the Delta Quadrant trying to get home. And Enterprise, of course, is about the very first ship of humans. And it seems like Discovery, its theme was kind of the Klingon War and this criminal Burnham redemption, but it seems like that arc is completed in season one. And I think if there's anything that kind of disappointed me about the ending of the series, which we'll get more into detail later, is that I was hoping they'd set up a clear theme of where the show's going to go. And I'm still murky. I think that Discovery still needs to find a theme.
Well, it may be that it's going to have a different theme every season, rather than having, because you're right, the theme. I mean, the theme to me was clearly it was Michael Burnham's redemption, it was the war, and also the spore drive. I would throw that in there too.
Yeah,
they were the ship that had this unique mode of transportation, which they still need to get rid of because future. But although there was kind of a line at the end where Stamets was like, oh, well, they said that until we find a non-human way of doing it, I don't have to do it for a little bit, or something like that. I don't know. So I think they're probably setting up for getting around the spore drive. But anyways, it was spore drive. It was Klingon War. It was Michael Burnham's redemption. So season 2 might just be a whole different theme. So it might just be every season we have a different theme. And I'm fine with that as long as it's consistent within each season. I would actually be okay. It would almost be, in a way, like this anthology series that we thought we might be getting, except with the same characters, but just a different kind of whole different story, like maybe a different 15-hour movie every year. There's a whole different theme every year, which I wouldn't have a problem if that's what they ended up doing. And the only hint, there was a hint given by one of the producers in the After Track where they just said, we're very interested in science versus spirituality for season 2. So what that exactly means, I don't know, but that's what they said. Like, that's one of the themes that they're going to hit in season 2. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, I am Churn in the chat says a soft anthology style, and yeah, actually, I agree. I wouldn't mind that if that's. I think season 2 is going to be the real test for that. Is that because season 1 did, as you say, it had a very clear about the Spore Drive and Burnham's journey and the Klingon Wars. So I think season 2 is going to be the test, and I actually do have faith, and I think because I do think this show has a lot of potential because there's a lot they did get right this season, and I think they can work through the kinks because they were kind of pushed and rushed. And this is something I'll just say now, I'll just say it up front, is because I heard some people a couple people say, "Oh, I can't wait till September when season 2 starts." And I was thinking, September? That seems a bit early. So I looked this up, and what I looked up, it said specifically, "Do not expect Discovery to return in September," because apparently Alex Kurtzman said that it's not going to return until 2019 at the earliest. And what he specifically said is we want to take as much time as we need to get season 2 right. And that actually, I love that. It actually gives me a lot of hope because I think a lot of issues in season 1, as I said, is because they were being rushed and everyone's like, oh, we got to hurry up and put this out. So the fact they're saying we're not going to rush season 2 makes me think they're going to get things right this time and learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, as far as I know, they haven't started filming it yet, so I don't even know. I don't even know if it's written yet. I don't know. So I don't see how they could possibly have it in September. So yeah, I agree with that. I kind of expected that it probably would be 2019, knowing that they haven't even started it yet. And I'm fine with that if that's what they're doing. They're trying to get it right. They're taking time to get it right. I think I applaud that. Take your time, get it right. Like I'm not any. I would rather see, and I've said this about Game of Thrones and other shows too, I'd rather wait for a quality product than have a crappy product come out sooner. That it'll be worth the wait. So take your time.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And well, just Iron Churn in the chat says, what if they do the Nicholas Myers project in between seasons with different teams' crew? I'd be okay with that, except I think that they need to at least wait until Discovery finishes season 2 before introducing another Star Trek show, maybe even after season 3, because I don't want to be bombarded with too many Star Trek shows at first. I think they need to ease into it a bit slowly. And I haven't read up on this Nicholas Meyer project, but so I don't know much about it. But I wouldn't mind another Star Trek series going at the same time as Discovery, but not yet. They need some time for it.
Yeah, I agree too. I don't want to be over bombarded with new Star Trek. So yeah, I agree with that.
Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the season properly. Now we're going to focus mainly on the second half because we already did a video talking about the first half. So let's start with this Mirror Universe storyline. It was a 4-episode arc, which, as I mentioned before, most people were really huge on. I was really excited about this. For me, I know you probably have a different opinion, but for me personally, I felt like my favorite episode of the season was the first episode when we get back, episode 10. For me, that because after the first half of the Discovery, I was just like, oh yeah, this is a decent show. It's a good show, but I wasn't really expecting much. Like I wasn't highly anticipating its return. I was just like, okay. And actually, to be perfectly honest, that mid-season finale really disappointed me because it was hyped up so much. It's like, this is going to be like Balance of Terror. And it was kind of like, it was okay. I guess it wasn't horrible, but I felt like, oh, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get more okay, but not horrible. And we come back with this first episode that was just like, and it was, to me, it was amazing. Maybe I put more emphasis on it because Jonathan Frakes directed it, but I thought it was brilliantly directed. And I thought the reveal of the Vok Tyler thing, which we'll get more into later, was really well done. And just seeing the reveal of the Mirror Universe and the way to just thrust this in this like really high tension situation reminded me of the best Mirror Universe episodes like Crossover and Mirror Mirror, and that where there's really high, there's stuckness in possible situation is like really we're gonna die type universe and I really need to get out. And I think the high tension was done so well, but yet it was original from those episodes. It didn't feel like a rehash of those episodes. It felt true to the characters of Discovery, and I think that followed through through the whole 4 episode story arc, which I do really love a lot. But before I get into some of the faults I have with Afkin, what are some of your thoughts on the Mirror Universe arc?
Blown away. I was absolutely blown away. I mean, we all pretty much knew it was going to the Mirror Universe. I mean, it wasn't really a well kept secret. But I was not expecting anything like that. I mean, I was almost like, yeah, Mirror Universe, whatever. They've done it so many times. Like, I mean, Deep Space Nine almost kind of overdid it. Like, once they had the Ferengis in it, I was like, okay, all right. So it was, I mean, I wasn't excited about the idea of them going back to the Mirror Universe, even though Mirror Mirror, when I was a kid, was my favorite episode growing up, or one of my favorite episodes. I just wasn't like, I was like, yeah, I've done it before, but I was absolutely blown away. Like you said, the tension and the possible situation, and I love how they just weaved in the Vogue storyline into that, because that was one of the questions I had. If we're going to the Mirror Universe, when are they going to do this Vogue reveal, which we all know is coming? I mean, how are they going to make it work if they're going to be in the Mirror Universe? And they did it brilliantly. And an absolute amazing four episode arc. I agree that I think the first episode back was like the best until, for me personally, the last episode of the arc. I know we have slightly different opinions on this one, but the last episode of the arc I thought was a great finale for this story arc. It very much felt like a feature film quality of viewing that I was doing. Like, felt very epic and big. So I think the first and the last of that arc were amazing, and the two in between were pretty damn good too. So it definitely, I would say this 4-episode arc was far superior for my money, than anything in any season 1 of any Star Trek show. It took Next Generation until season 3 to get to this level of quality. So I was just absolutely blown away. And we'll talk about the last 2 episodes later, but there was a dip, and I expected there to be. I didn't think that they would be able to keep that up. But this kind of quality now, I'd like to see them carry forward without the Mirror Universe in future seasons. So we'll see if they can do it. But I would say some of the best 4 episodes, a 4-episode cluster of Trek, I would say it's up there as one of my favorite of any series. I was completely blown away.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. Even when I said earlier that I personally prefer season 1 of Voyager, I'm talking about as a whole, because for me that had more cohesion. But if you're talking about that, just the mirror arc, I would say that was way better than anything in season 1 of Voyager. Anything better than any season 1 of any Star Trek show, even the original series, I'd say. So yeah, I would agree that this 4-episode mirror arc was amazing. Now I want to again go to the chat where Iron Trent says that we still have a mirror cliffhanger on which members of La Resistance survived the planet bombarding. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't even thought about the possibility of revisiting the Mirror Universe. I suppose it's out there. It's anything's possible, I suppose. But yeah, did you have any thoughts on that, Afkin?
I don't know. I think we could possibly. I'm not. I've said in my videos, I am absolutely convinced that we're going to see Prime Lorca, and he's apparently in the Mirror Universe. They didn't make that very clear, but they kind of like, oh, he's in the Mirror Universe somewhere, and Caldwell goes, well, no Starfleet officer could survive the Mirror Universe, so he's dead. So he was in there somewhere. So it's possible. I'm convinced we're going to see him. Absolutely. So it's possible we see him by going into the Mirror Universe again.
What if Prime Lorca, now I'm getting totally off topic here with speculating, but what if Prime Lorca teams up with those members of La Resistance that survived the thing, and they help him get back to the Prime Universe for some reason? I don't know.
Unless he takes them with him, or something. In the universe. So, but then that's weird, because then there'd be 2 Sareks and 2 Volks. So
yeah. I don't know. Maybe he could do something to help them against the Terran Empire, and in exchange, they help him get back.
Yeah. But would they? like, would there be a subplot that takes place entirely in the Mirror Universe following Prime Lorca?
Well, no, I think we could just get the introduction of Prime Lorca and introduced to the Discovery crew, and he could explain all this through flashbacks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if we could just feel like the episode ends, oh my God, it's Lorca.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're gonna. Who knows? But I wouldn't think that we're really going to delve deeply into the Mirror Universe in season 2. But
yeah, I got that impression that we wouldn't. It seems like if anything's going to be an ongoing thread from the Mirror Universe, it's going to be the Mirror Giorgio, who's running around the Prime Universe now. But yeah, I sort of lost track here. Iron Trent says Cornwell's focus, my Gabriel almost guarantees we'll see another Lorca. See, and this is the thing. Like when I was watching the After Trek show after the episode with Lorca dies, they had Jason Isaacs on, and from the way he was talking, it seemed like he was only signed up for season 1. Like he only wanted to do season 1, and he's not really that interested in doing it anymore. And he's like, no, I've had my time, I had my done. But then I heard something in an interview that apparently Alex Kurtzman said he was ambiguous on whether or not Lorca would return for season 2. He's like, oh, we may see a Lorca in season 2. So I don't know. I think maybe, I think that the fans and everyone, critics responded so well to Jason Isaacs. I think most people agree is that he was amazing. So I think they would just beg him to come back. And I think even if it wasn't originally their plan, I think now everyone's dying to see Prime Lorca. I think it's going to increase the chances that might happen.
Yeah. And I don't know. I saw that same After Trek. I kind of thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was like the Kit Harington, no, Jon Snow is dead thing. I wasn't buying it. I didn't. Just spoilers for people who haven't seen and caught up with Game of Thrones season 5 or 6, or whatever that was. But yeah, the whole Kit Harington thing. I just thought that was the same kind of thing where he was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm not coming back. I'll never be on the show again." So I don't know. I think we will see him. Mark. Mark, are you there?
I lost my microphone. I'm going to have to come back in and come back out. I probably get shitty quality.
Okay, well, I'll sit here and I'll talk to people in the chat. Okay. So we're waiting for Mark to get back in to fix some technical difficulties. So what do you guys got to say? Okay, Iron Throne says, my crackpot is that Sarek is planning to surprise Michael and Vulcan with a captainship. Or because the Discovery got in so much trouble, they decided to give them a logical Vulcan as captain. I like that second one better. I don't think Michael Burnham is ready to be captain yet. The actress who plays her on the After Trek show was asked that, and she said, I don't think Michael's ready for captain. And I agree. I think it would be too much of a jump to make her captain. But I do like the Vulcan captain idea a little better. I could definitely see that.
Cool. I should be okay now.
Okay. Well,
yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I wanted to, all right, so now I wanted to get into the whole Lorca reveal, because, and this is, I think, maybe where we might disagree, and this is where I kind of had some issues with the Mirror Universe storyline. It's because, or not just the Mirror Universe storyline, but like the season as a whole. And part of what I was saying is like think the pacing was a bit off, is because it seemed like the whole like Lorca is really from the Mirror Universe thing was all set up with very little payoff. And this is something else that negative reviews said that I kind of agreed with. It seemed like there was like, we spent like 9 or so episodes with Lorca, and then we finally find out, and like during the Mirror arc, that he's from the Mirror Universe. And the very next episode, he's dead. So it makes the whole thing to me come off as a kind of I gotcha thing. And I almost feel like the storyline would have been better off had they not even bothered revealing that. It seemed like the reveal was kind of unnecessary, and it was just kind of added in there to shock people. And I will say, I do think it was built up to beautifully. Like there's a lot of things in place that sort of that were foreshadowing it. But and I've talked about this before. I do feel I like the character dynamic personally. If you think that he wasn't from the mirror universe, if you just think he was suffering PTSD and he's this asshole captain, kind of like Jellicoe or Pressman or Ransom or any of those guys. And to me, that dynamic is a bit more interesting than saying he's evil. But like I was okay. Like I would have been more okay with it had they went somewhere further with it, because I think there was potential there, especially with his attachment to Burnham and how he wanted her by his side and he was trying to take over the Empire. And this is where I guess we disagree on that. Episode 13, the final episode of the arc, because I do really think that was action packed, really exciting, well paid, well done episode. But to me, I wanted more, and it felt a bit rushed. It felt like they could have spent more time with this dynamic between the Lorca and Burnham once Burnham actually knew he was from the mirror universe. But it seemed like all of a sudden, like that he's revealed evil is like, oh, I'm totally evil now. And I just wish I think they could have done more with that rather than just killing him off in that one episode. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, that's something we do disagree on, because honestly, we knew we had 15 episodes. I knew we're not ending in the mirror universe. There's no way. We got to go back to where we started, finish what you started. You got to have at least 2 episodes for that. So I expected the 13th episode to end the mirror universe arc. I expected Lorca to die. It didn't feel rushed to me at all. It felt like the natural pace to me. Like I don't know, maybe it's just because like I knew that's what was going to happen, because I knew we needed at least 2 episodes to be back in the Prime universe. So I had absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. I could see your point of view where, you know, it would have been nice if there was more development between you know, Lorca and his obsession with Michael. However, like you really saw it all throughout the season, but earlier in the season, you're like, what is his deal? Like, why is he so obsessed with Michael Burnham? And you get, you know, maybe not a full explanation of exactly why he was obsessed with her, but it definitely, for me, it was like okay, well, it makes more sense now. I mean, to me, they didn't clearly explain this, I don't think, but to me, I saw it as kind of you know, a predatory relationship. Like he like had this obsession with her. He wanted her as his trophy, and he was just obsessed with this woman that he just had to have. And I don't have any problem with that storyline at all. And it was definitely, it explained his behavior earlier in the season, and including, I thought very interestingly, explaining why Michael Burnham ends up on Discovery in the first place is because this dude from the mirror universe was obsessed with their counterpart, because that was a thing. I was like, why are they bringing her out of prison? That doesn't make any sense. So to me, it made sense. It explained questions that I had earlier in the year. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. They could have like developed that more and spent more time on it, but I just knew we were ending there, so I didn't have any issues with it personally. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, and I do agree with what you're saying about, and it does come across in what they did that Lorca had a sort of, you know, possession relationship with Burnham, and I think that does come across. But again, I just wish they spent more time with this, and maybe like, and even as you say, like you knew that they weren't going to end in the mirror universe, and we only had 5 episodes left, but it still seems like kind of disproportionate that we spent 9 episodes sort of building up, and some of these storylines, like when I look at it as and the whole, like it makes me think they should have went to the mirror universe earlier and spent more time developing this instead of wasting time having Saru mess around on this planet, like, you know, whatever the hell he was doing, or having Harry Mudd. I'm still sort of anti Harry Mudd, even though that time loop episode was okay. It's like, was it really necessary though? Was it necessary for the overplot? And this is what I mean by like pacing overall the season. This is something I hope they fix with season 2.
Yeah, well, I for one would like to not see Harry Mudd anymore.
Absolutely.
I think we've had enough of him. They could bring back some other character from the original series, which I'm sure they'll do. But no, that's enough of Harry Mudd. And yeah, I do agree. Like they could have spent more time on that arc, more time in the Mirror Universe, rather than that Saru going down that planet thing. That was kind of weird. I don't know if that was necessary. Yeah, I definitely agree with some of your points there. I mean, they could have spent more time on that arc rather than some of these other silly things they did. Although I did enjoy the time episode. I had fun with that episode. Um, yeah, I agree with most of what you're saying.
Cool. All right, yeah. Let's actually, before we move on, anything else in the Mirror Universe you want to touch on before we move on?
No, not that I can think of. But if I think of something later, I'll jump back to it. But
maybe touch briefly on the rebellion. Actually, no. I think we talked about it. I want to go ahead and move on about Voke and Tyler. And actually, this feeds into the Mirror Universe a bit about the rebellion, whatever, because I did think it was interesting, like you said earlier, that the reveal of Voke was, and what provoked him was seeing his mirror counterpart and how he was totally, and I love this, he was like totally the opposite. And I think this was a really good use of the Mirror Universe, because it's not as easy as I'm good, you're evil. It's more of this is opposite, and this is the way things could have gone had history gone down differently. And he was like the total opposite of Prime Voke, where he was like, we need to unite. All those species were in the same plight. We have something that really bothers us, and so we need to come together. And how that really pissed him off, because that's like the total opposite. And he's like, when he started, he was first Tyler, no one knew he was Voke, and he started speaking to him in Klingon. I was like, you betrayed, you're a traitor, blah blah. And that's what sort of brought him back. And I like how when they get back to the ship, and Burnham's like, seriously, what the fuck? And then he just goes all out and like tries to kill her, and that was super intense. I thought that was like one of the best ways to reveal that he was Tyler, or that Tyler was Voke.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that. Yeah, I never would have guessed that he's going to be triggered by seeing himself in the Mirror Universe. I thought that was pretty creative. It was pretty well done. And I think I have a better understanding of the dynamic between the two of them now after seeing the finale. Still not clear on the physical aspects of how that surgery, what is he? Is he a Tyler shell over Voke's body? Like that part I'm not clear on. But at that time I was still a little confused on how much is, or not confused, but I was waiting to see how much is Voke, how much is Ash Tyler, and we did get that answer. I'm still confused on the physical aspect of it, but and the other aspect of it was made clear after that episode. So yeah, I thought it was well done.
Yeah, I was really confused about that too, and I think by the end of the season I kind of just let it go and be like, oh, whatever. they're going with the consciousness of Tyler's reaffirming, so maybe it's Tyler's body, but I don't know. I've sort of given up on that. I think maybe they could have been more clear in that, but I did like how, like, again, this is getting back to the first episode of the second half. Like, this was another great reveal, the way that, like, Laurel said the keyword and he was always saying, all right, K-less. Like, that was so intense. I was, like, so blown away by that. But I like how her keyword didn't work as the way it was intended to. And then he explains a bit later in the season, it's because of Tyler's attachment to Burnham was keeping him grounded in Tyler and not letting him go full Voke, which he kind of did. But I do love that, and I think the relationship between Burnham and Tyler played out really well. And I think this is something the first half of the season did earn, I believe. This is another, I think, we'll get more into Burnham's overall story arc, but I think this part of it too was really great, how we learn that she's never loved before, she's never had this attachment, and she finally is able to do that and turns out to be a Klingon spy, which I think the tragedy of that was played very well. And of course you had the other side, of course, where Tyler was saying her it's because of her that he was able to remain Tyler. And I think the way they ended it in the season was really good, where, you know, the two of them learned to appreciate each other, but they knew that they couldn't be together because Tyler had to go off and do his thing, which made perfect sense for me. So anyway, yeah, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. Just I mean, I don't know. I don't really have much to add to that, honestly. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, yeah. But what did you think though of the Tyler and Burnham relationship? Were you happy with the way that played out this season and the ending resolution of it?
Yeah, I thought it was excuse me, choppy at places. Like there were times where I was buying it. There were other times where I thought it was a little contrived, a little forced. Um, it kind of went back and forth for me. And as far as the resolution goes, I'm glad that they didn't end up together, because that would have been too corny. But I at the same time glad that they had a little bit of a reconnection at the end. Um, but so that she's not just going to ignore him for the rest of the series. That would have not made any sense. So I'm glad that there was some resolution between them, but they didn't end up like back together as a couple, because that would have been hard to buy. So I do like that Ash Tyler ended up going off to try to help both races, because he understands both races. I thought that was a good resolution to his character. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to be doing, traveling around with a human, traveling around with a Klingon, but I guess that's a season 2 thing to worry about. But yeah, I don't know. I was kind of hot and cold on the whole love story. In the beginning of it, I was really like, yeah, this seems really forced, and I'm not buying it. But there were times where it did feel really real. So overall, kind of up and down for me. But I did think it was a good resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Like I liked it all the way through, but that's just me. So Iron Tron in the chat is trying to explain the procedure with Vogue and Tyler. It says they started with Vogue's body, then overlaid Ash's reconstructed psyche, and then connected Vogue's psyche to Tyler's. So when Laurel did her surgery, she disconnected Vogue's psyche from Ash. Huh? I'm still confused. I think what I get from that, is that it's Vogue's body. That's what I get from it.
That's what I had kind of thought, but
yeah. But they showed like some flashbacks of like surgery, and they talk about grafting. It made me think they were grafting, you know, parts of his body, and because
it's been simple to put Vogue's consciousness in Ash Tyler's body or something. Like that just seems way overly complicated.
Yeah.
There could have been a much simpler way to do this. Like it just seems way.
I mean, the way Colbert described this is like he seemed to suggest that it was Vogue's body that had been crushed and deconstructed to be a human body. So that's what I got of it. But speaking of Colbert, why don't we touch on that about Vogue killing him, because that was a pretty shocking moment. And apparently, like, you know, on the after show they said, oh, we'll see Colbert again, but some people were saying, oh, that means that he's going to come back to life. But we're getting an appearance of him in the Spore Drive network or whatever when Stamets is trying to get back to the Prime.
Uh-oh, Mark, you're frozen. Hello?
Can't hear me.
I hear you now. You were frozen.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, what was the network called?
Mycelial Network.
Mycelial Network. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so God damn.
Hello, Mark. You're freezing up again.
I'm going to come back out. I'm going to leave and come back out again. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's get back to the chat. What do you guys have to say in the chat? Let's see. Okay, you were still talking about the surgery. It says like Legos. I still think that's overly complicated. Like I think that they could have done a much simpler way. What else you guys got? Come on, give me something. We got to talk about something until Mark gets back. What else you guys got? Yeah, I still think that surgery was way overly complicated. If that's what they wanted to do, it seems like they could have given Volk surgery to look like a human. Just simple surgery that they've done in other Star Trek episodes, not this whole bone crushing thing. Or they could have just put in his consciousness in Ash Tyler's body or something like that. Let's see. I got nothing else.
Am I here again? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
cool. All right, hopefully we won't have any more issues. Alrighty. Cool. So move on to the Klingon War end of the storyline of the season.
Sure.
Oh, fuck me. Are you there?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yep. Thought I lost you again. All right, cool. So yeah, let's move on to the last couple episodes where we resolve the Klingon War, and we come back and they jump 9 months into the future, so everything's looking bleak and horrible, and they almost lost the war, and I don't know I don't know how much I'd like that. It seemed like kind of unnecessary for them to jump 9 months in the future. I guess they wanted to have it so bleak, but the fact that it is so bleak seems kind of inconsistent. But I don't know. Whatever. I have to give it a pass on that. And this is just an issue with having a prequel or something.
Uh-oh.
This is something. Oh, fuck. Do you lose me again? Oh, crap. Can you hear me now?
You're phasing it. You're fading in and out.
Okay, I'm going to come back out and leave again. Hold on. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties. What do you guys have to say in the chat about the ending when they go back and they're 9 months in the future? Mark was just talking about how he didn't think that was absolutely necessary, and I guess they needed to set up a really, really bleak situation. I don't know if they needed to go 9 months in the future either. I think I'm kind of on board with him on that one. Why not just come back and things are bleak? I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know if it was absolutely necessary, but I'm also not entirely bothered by it either. I think there could be worse things they could have done. And I'm sure Mark's going to talk about this when we get back, but there's, of course, the
what's that?
Are you back?
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. I'm going to monitor things. So hopefully, it should be fine.
I was just starting to get into the issues with the canon and how it doesn't seem like there ever was any kind of part of Federation history where things were that bleak, where Klingons were, taking over 30% of the Federation and painting their symbols on star bases and all these things that, and so it was kind of, in order for them to set up a really, bleak situation, you kind of have to go against canon a little bit. And I think maybe before you left, I thought I heard you saying something about the problem with prequels.
Yes, I was saying that. Yeah, that is very limiting on what you can do. And if they had set this after Voyager times, they'd be free to do whatever the hell they wanted to.
Why I wanted it to be set after Voyager times. I was a big fan of let's set this 100 years after Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, because then you can do whatever the fuck you want. It's all wide open. You don't have to worry about messing with canon because yeah, if you're going to set up a really bleak situation for the characters, you're going to have to create a situation that probably just never was mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of get over that for the most part. It doesn't totally bother me. It just annoys me a little bit. As But yeah, I mean, I think like the reason, and this is another thing I was saying, is that you were saying this before Discovery even started, that you felt like it needed a reason to be set during this time period. And I'm not sure. I don't feel confident we got that yet. I don't think they really justified setting it in this time period. And I think the main reason that they did set in this time period is because of the reboots, and the reboots were popular, and it's that popularity that got them, so they needed to set it around the same time so it resembled the reboots. And I think that's all there was to it.
Yeah, and that's disappointing.
Absolutely.
I definitely wanted, I felt like there needed to be some kind of reason for why. Why are we here? Why am I watching these Klingons that aren't Klingons? Like, why are we here? I originally said that, I mean, I would consider it a failure if we didn't get that reason. I'm going to step back on that because we didn't get that reason, and I don't consider it a failure because we got so many other great storytelling. We got a great Mirror Universe arc. We got a very well-rounded character in Michael Burnham. So I don't think it was a failure, but still, the reboots are popular. It's not a good enough reason for me for this to be set when it's set. I wanted a reason, and at this point, we're never going to get any other reason than that. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think we might. I think they could justify it a bit more in future seasons.
I'm just making my peace with the fact that there's no.
Well, fair enough. You know, like if they don't, then I'm not going to be that bothered by it. But I wanted to point out a nice little Easter egg, and I can't remember the name of the goddamn house, but it was pointed out to me that the house that took over the Starbase, that was like Starbase 1 or whatever, and put their symbol on it. Apparently, that's the house of the guy who showed up on Deep Space Nine, who went to Quark and died, and Quark took over his house for that one episode. I don't know if you remember that episode.
Oh yeah, but that guy was he appeared in it before. I remember hearing about that a few episodes back.
Really?
Was that the dude from Deep Space Nine? Like, was at least his house was in it.
No, it was a different, like, there's a dude from Deep Space Nine who's friends with Worf. He's like this old guy who was actually on the original series as well. Core. His house was in the first half of Discovery. He was his house was the main villain.
Deep Space Nine episode.
What's that?
You're talking about a different Deep Space Nine episode then.
Yeah. So I'm talking. This is a different Deep Space Nine episode where this guy, he only appeared in this one episode. He goes to Quark, and he dies, and they say that Quark killed him. So Quark takes over his house and marries the Klingon woman. I don't know if you remember that episode at all.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was. So that was apparently the house that took over the Starbase. So it was basically the future house of Quark.
I'm looking in the house of Doros.
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten a Doros mention yet. We got Doros mentions in Enterprise. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get one. But anyway, back to the whole war. So yeah, I mean, I think most people, and I think you're in agreement with these, that the ending is not horrible. Like, these last two episodes weren't bad, but there's kind of felt like a letdown after the mayor thing. Like it didn't sort of live up, and it seemed like in one episode they built up, and this is something I think we agree on, is these two episodes were rushed. These needed to be more episodes to try to fit this whole arc into two episodes. I felt rushed, especially in this last one. They spent so much time with Tilly and the planet with the the Orions and her getting high, whatever. I like that, but it was the fact that then they just sped through the resolution. They're like, Burnham confronts Giorgio, and I thought, oh shit, this is going to be a huge confrontation. Giorgio's like, okay, whatever, here you go, and just fucks off. I was like, well, that's a bit anticlimactic anyway, and that's actually the word I've been hearing a lot to describe this last episode is anticlimactic. I don't know what some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I said this in my review too. I I felt like what they should have done is the same thing they did at the beginning of the season, where they had episode 1 and 2 air at the same time, so it was kind of a 2-hour premiere. So I thought they should have had like episode 15 and 16 air at the same time, a 2-hour finale, and you can have the first episode can be a lot of the Tilly getting high and all those silly things, and then by the end of it, you're starting to build up to this climax, and you have this really climactic kind of cliffhanger, even though not much of a cliffhanger because you're going to watch the next episode right after it, but like kind of this climax right at the end, and then have a full episode about the resolution to the story. And I mean, I wanted more. I didn't think it was climactic enough. I agree it was anticlimactic, not only with Giorgio, but when Michael Burnham went to Starfleet. And she just made one speech to Adam Cornwell. She's like, "Oh, okay, all right, fine. We see the error of our ways now." And then she goes down to the planet and goes, "Giorgio, we're doing this." She's like, "Oh, okay, here you go." And then I also thought L'Rell was convinced way too easily. Like she's like, "We are going to crush and destroy all humans," and then all of a sudden she goes along with her plan out of nowhere. I just felt like there should have been more buildup, more tension. Before you reach this resolution, and they needed another hour at least to do that. So I would have liked episode 15 and 16 premiere, I'm sorry, finale, airing at the same time. I think they could have done it a little better had they done that. But you know what? They're gonna have to try to do better in season 2. I mean, there have been some pretty crappy Star Trek finales. Before, wasn't Shades of Grey? Wasn't that a season finale?
Yes, yes, it was. But yeah, there was a writer's strike, so a lot of people excuse it for that.
I personally think Time Zero Part 1 was worse than this one. Like I just wasn't into the Time Zero crap myself, but that was just me. So I think there have been worse ones, and let's just hopefully they figure it out for season 2 and have a better finale. But I think there's a lot of things I liked about it. I liked the resolution. I didn't like how we got to the resolution, and I liked Michael Burnham's resolution. But yeah, it was definitely rushed at the end. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me, maybe this is just me, but it seems like first half of season 1 they were just lounging around, taking their time. Oh, let's do it in season. In the second half, they're like, we gotta rush and get everything out at once. And it seems like that's what it's disproportionate. The second half should have been longer than the first half, in my opinion. In fact, I think the writers even talked about how they wanted to go to the mirror universe earlier, but they decided not to because they wanted people to get used to the characters before they had to introduce their evil characters, which I understand. That does make sense, but it seems like they didn't take much time to get that proportion pacing issue down pat, and that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have a point that a lot of that might have to do with kind of the off-screen thing problems that they were having and all the different production issues. So hopefully a lot of that stuff will be cleared up in season 2.
Yeah, and like getting to the L'Rell thing, because I kind of had an issue with that at first, but someone, like, I watched this video, kind of explained that it wasn't so much, they said it's not so much a war with the Federation, it's more of all these houses were warring with each other, and they decided that the way they were going to compete was by see who can fuck up the Federation the most. And so they were in a like pissing contest with each other to sort of fuck up the Federation and see who could get more piece of land. They say by bringing the houses together, uniting the houses was a way for them to stop the war with the Federation, because if they're not competing with each other, they no longer have a need to attack the Federation, which I don't know. I mean, I guess that makes some sort of sense, but then again, like, she was a student of Takuvman. His whole thing is we needed to unite in order to take down the Federation. So it seems like then that would be her thing, if she's going to unite them to take them down together rather than to compete. So I don't know. I think they could have taken more time to explain that. And plus, and maybe it's just me, like the excuse they gave is, oh, Klingons respect strength. But to me, it seems kind of iffy that she would become the ruler now that she has, because she has a bomb that can blow up the whole home world. And I was saying in my review, I would think that someone would call her out on this and be like, all right, go ahead, blow up the home world, see if you can do it. Or like it reminds me of like these parodies of like Lethal Weapon. Like there was a Loaded Weapon 1 movie, and I think there's a Saturday Night Live skit where the guy, Mel Gibson's character from Lethal 1, was just going around with a gun to his head. Like, oh, let's get ice cream. No, you can't have ice cream. Give me some ice cream. Like he always put, that's what I imagine like Laurel doing with the bomb. It's like, okay, well, give me this piece of land. No, you can't have the land. Ah, here's the bomb. I'm gonna blow up the world. It's like, all right, fine, you can have the land. I mean, is that what she's going to do?
Yeah, I agree that is a little weak, and I think that they should have taken more time to have a resolution that makes a little more sense. But yeah, I mean, when again, okay, blow up the planet, now we're all dead. That's great. I mean, go ahead and do it. And you know, if they're consistent with the other track lore, you'd think there would be some Klingon. I will die with honor. Go ahead and blow up the planet, and I will be, I don't know, whatever. I agree. I think somebody would have said, "Go ahead and blow up the planet," but it's a little shaky. And I wonder, and I do believe we will see Laurel because Ash Tyler with her in season 2. So I wonder where they're going to go next. Now, as far as what you were saying about the Federation uniting, or the Klingon Empire uniting against the Federation, that's what I kind of thought too. And I did get that it was a pissing contest. They did explain that in the show, that it was the different houses were just competing to see who could fuck up the Federation the most. But now that they're all together, what's stopping them from all uniting against the Federation? I mean, maybe Ash Tyler, I guess. Or I don't know, but
yeah, that seems to be the only thread, and they didn't even explain that well enough. They just said, "Oh, Tyler's going off," so you think he's the one who's gonna keep it together, but they didn't explain that enough. They needed to go into more detail about this.
Yeah.
Sure. Have a look at all right. I think I had something else to say about this, but I can't remember. So let's go ahead and move on. Let's just talk about the sort of. Oh yeah, let's talk about the Burnham's part where she gives the speech to Cornwell, which you mentioned earlier. Is because, like, I think this was a good wrap up to her storyline. I think we got a very clear character arc, one which I think played out well, which I totally buy. And I still love the actress who played Burnham. I think she did an amazing job. I was watching a couple videos like, oh, this actress just has one performance, depressed or super depressed or whatever. And I totally disagree. I think I see a lot of different dynamics in her, and I think I liked how they made she made the appeal to Federation Starfleet principles, and that completed her arc, because at the beginning of the season she went away from those principles to save the Federation, but then she realized that saving the Federation that way is not the way to do it. I still don't completely and totally buy that Cornwell that all the Admiralty, no matter how dire the situation is, I think they'd rather die than like destroy an entire world. That's just me. I don't know. I've already had other people disagree with me on this, but
yeah, I disagree with you on that too. Actually,
you do? Okay.
I mean, I mean, we're talking about annihilation of the Federation and the human race. You do what you got to do, and I mean, there's precedent for it in Star Trek. I mean, obviously. Covering up the murder of one Romulan is not the same as blowing up a whole planet. But you had the Starfleet brass going, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we'll that's fine as long as the Romulans are in the Dominion War now. Do whatever it takes." So I think there's precedent for it, and I think that when you're facing annihilation, you do whatever you think you need to do. So I bought it. I didn't have a problem with it personally.
I can kind of see that, and there have been similar situations. Like someone pointed out, the founders, they were going to wipe them out, but I pointed out that wasn't actually Starfleet. That was Section 31. But then Starfleet didn't do anything to stop them, so you could say they were complicit in it. But whatever, I don't know. I think that there were similar situations, but I still feel that the way it was done here, I wasn't completely believable for me, but it wasn't like a huge issue regardless.
What was
But
less believable for me is, like I said, how, like, if they're so determined to do this, like how easily they were convinced to, oh, okay, all right.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, that seems a tad like I don't have that big of an issue with it because it seems like they shouldn't be that committed to destroying a homeworld, and so talking them out of it would be fairly easy if she can come up with a better way to save the Federation, which apparently she did. But again, I have issues with this whole plan with the realm, but apparently it worked and whatever. But yeah, and so then like she gets reinstated as whatever, and they forgive her. And I know I've read some reviews already where people have an issue with this. I have no issue with this. In fact, if any issue I had was how rough they were to her at the start of the season, I think that was disproportionate and just saying, "Oh, you started the war, you mutinied," but she was just doing what she thought was right for the Federation. So I think they were being too harsh on us. So the fact that they'd forgive her, especially after what she just did, which was basically to save the entire Federation and do it in a way that kept to the Federation principles, and of course they're going to reinstate her. Of course they're going to give her commission back. I mean, to me, this was the most thing that made the most sense in the world.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. And I brought this up the last 2 weeks in my reviews. To me, this made more sense than Captain Kirk stealing the Enterprise and just going fuck you to all the orders that he was given. And he stole Federation property, did whatever the fuck he wanted. I'm talking about Star Trek 3 carrying over to 4. He comes back, he saves the planet from, he goes back and gets the whales and saves the planet. And they're like, okay, you're fine. Your punishment is you're reduced to captain, which is exactly what he wanted for the whole freaking movies, is he wished he could be captain again. So they just gave him what he wanted. That's his punishment. And to me, like, that made less sense to me than what happened with Michael Burnham. And I've forgiven that years ago. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It was a good ending. But I remember even as a kid watching that, I'm like, what? They're just forgiving him? Like, it's just, but that's what you do in shows. So to me, Michael Burnham was far more believable than that, in my opinion. And as I felt all along, we got to get rid of this whole I'm a prisoner, I'm not really in Starfleet thing for season 2. I think that's got to be a 1-season arc. I don't know how long are you going to carry that on. Is that going to be? She's just going to be like that for all the seasons. I think that would just drag on too long. I think it needed to end at the end of season 1, and I think it made perfect sense.
Yeah, I completely and totally agree with that. I think if they dragged it out forever, that would have sucked. But I want to backtrack slightly and talk about Saru, which we haven't talked about much. He didn't have as much to do in the second half of the season, but I think the story arc that he had is that one episode he gave that amazing speech to the crew and to the bridge crew, to got them united, and I totally bought that. So in the final episode, when they all stood behind Burnham, and they all stood up to Cornwell, not just Burnham, and they all supported her. I totally bought this. I totally bought the solidarity of the crew, and I totally bought Saru as someone who's formed a connection with them, and they sort of united in their sort of being kind of punished by Lorca and their hatred of Lorca, and thank God he's gone now. And they united behind Saru, and I thought that was played out amazingly well. I'm almost a bit disappointed that Saru didn't become captain, even saying what I did in the first half of the season as I thought he had no business being captain. I think the show actually got me to change my mind and got me to appreciate Saru as a captain, and just think of that one episode in the first half was just bad writing, just isolated to that episode. And outside of that episode, I was really impressed with Saru. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I actually was kind of wondering that myself. Why don't they just make Saru captain? He made a pretty great speech. He'd just be captain based on that one speech. But I don't know. I can also see he just became first officer. He's still a little inexperienced, so I could see why they might go a different direction for captain. But yeah, I could also was wondering myself, or I mean, why don't they just make Saru captain? So
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead if you have more.
oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to change the topic there. I was going to talk more about speaking of the bridge crew, because this is something I've heard a lot of people complain about. These are, we don't know who these characters are, so just sort of one-line characters and what are they doing there. But for me, it doesn't bother me at all because they were never to me, they were never introduced as being more than what they were. To me, they were introduced as being bridge characters who say "Aye, Captain" and push the buttons, and nothing more than that. And the show, I think, was very clear that the focus was on Tilly, Stamets, Saru, Burnham, and Lorca, and all them. And so I have no issue with that. But I think, and I do actually have faith that the show will expand these characters more going forward. And if they do that, I actually think that will be brilliant. I think that will be, instead of like trying to shove, like most Star Trek series do this, and that's probably why they're used to it, trying to shove all these new characters from the very first episode. It's just slowly trickling characters. This is something the show that I personally love, Stargate Universe, did, and I think they did this well because they had a bunch of background characters not doing much, but over time you got to know them better. And I think that's what Discovery's plan with these characters, because I feel like I gotten to know them even better towards the end of the season. They become slightly, even though I still don't know their names, but I think they become slightly more than just the "Aye, Captain." And I have a feeling that they're gonna grow even more in future seasons, and if they do this right, I think it could be done very well.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of what the original Star Trek did? I mean, wasn't it originally, it was just kind of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and then you had, I mean, Sulu didn't really have a personality when he first came on, and I mean, those other guys kind of developed over time, as I recall. I mean, maybe Scotty was a little bit more of a thing, but some of those other guys, and then Chekhov didn't even come to the second season, I don't think. So, yeah, I feel like that show kind of focused more on the three. I mean, it always focused more on those three than anybody else through the whole series. But as the show went on, you got more of the other guys than you had. Yeah, that's exactly was my thoughts of this show. That's what they're doing. I don't have a problem with that. I do wonder about that one weird dude that I've heard another podcast that I listen to refer to him as a robot, and how can he be a robot because Data hasn't been I mean, Data was like the one android and he was many years later, but I don't know if they've confirmed that that's some kind of robot. You know I'm talking about, that weird dude.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know that that's been confirmed that he is actually some sort of android or robot. I just thought he was a weird alien thing. But
apparently it's a woman though.
Oh, it's a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I've heard it referred to as a robot, but I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it could be some alien like robotic mixture. I don't know. Like, yeah, I hope that, I would love to see like an entire episode next season like devoted to her backstory. I think I don't know.
Yeah, we might get it. We might start getting more of these other characters, these in there a little bit more.
Yeah, and and as I said, if they do it right, I think it could be brilliant.
I agree.
All right, so I want to ask you about that award ceremony, because you might have saw my review. I had a big issue with this. Reminded me too much of the reboots where they made Kirk captain, like from a cadet to captain. Thankfully, they didn't make Tilly a captain. I was almost expecting them to do that, but it was just seemed a bit too.
But she should have been in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. But it seemed a bit cheesy to me. Like, it's like the awards. Oh, you're awarded with champion. And it's like, I don't know. Did you have any issues with that, or is that just
I didn't have any issues with it. I mean, I get that point of view, but I personally don't have a problem with it. I like Burnham had a place to give a speech. I think it should end with her giving a speech, and I don't have any issues. Wasn't there? It's been a while, but at the end of Star Trek 4, when they told Kirk he couldn't be captain, he was reinstated, but he could be captain again. Wasn't that like? Wasn't there some sort of award ceremony? They got medals. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I thought there was some sort of.
Oh, well, it was kind of, no, it wasn't an award ceremony. They were on trial, but they basically said you're all free to go. And Kirk, who your only punishment is, we'll give you the thing that you always wanted. So everyone cheered like it was, and everyone got off. Yay! So it felt like an award ceremony, but really it was a trial. But yeah, it did have a kind of somewhat similar feel to that.
Yeah. I can understand why you would have a problem with it, but I didn't have an issue with it.
Fair enough. Like, yeah. I mean, I didn't have that big of an issue. It was just, I don't know, reminded me too much of the reboot. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't as bad as the whole started in the first episode when Burnham was on trial and they had those people sitting in the dark, like the cigarette smoking man going, guilty, guilty. Like, I guess that was like actually way worse. But
that reminded me actually of Superman. Guilty. Guilty. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree with that. That was a little much.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's finish off and talk about this ending and some of our thoughts on season 2. I think I wasn't very happy with this ending. I didn't hate it. Like, I don't hate the concept of introducing the Enterprise. I just wasn't that big of a fan of that was the big conclusion of the season. That's what it's leading up to, and that's what they're going to feed into season 2. Fan service. And that's personally, I hope season 2 is going to be more than fan service. Now, I've heard some talk that apparently this is another thing, like Kurtzman said something on the after show that kind of implied we might see Spock, but apparently in an interview I read, he was like, oh, maybe we'll see Spock, maybe we won't see him. And I don't know, I don't know, like, I'm almost feeling we kind of need to see him now. If they're talking about they want to resolve the thing between why Burnham was never mentioned in the original series, which I say just let it go, but they want to address it, whatever. And I think if they try to address it without showing Spock, especially if the Enterprise is right there and we don't see Spock, I think I'd be a bit disappointed. But even if we do see him, I hope it's just like a thing, a brief scene or episode. I hope it's not the entire season's about it.
Cameo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unexpected. This is a cameo. Now, as far as I definitely can understand the point of view that it was just fan servicey ending it this way, and definitely ending with the original theme music was over the top. I agree with that, and that was a step too far. But I said last week in my review that where the hell's the Enterprise in this? Why is Discovery all of a sudden the most important ship in the universe? It's just like in Deep Space Nine, in the Dominion War, the Defiant was the flagship of the Federation all of a sudden. Where's the Enterprise? Well, it's on a different show, so we're not focusing on that anymore. So I kind of felt like that to me. Like, I would like to know where the Enterprise was in all this. Like, because it's been always stated as like the greatest ship ever. It's the flagship. Everybody wants to be on the Enterprise. So why is Discovery like the most important ship now? So I like that we're bringing the Enterprise into it. I agree. I don't want it to be a long stay. I want it to be a cameo. I also said in my last review that they better, if they're going to show Spock and Pike, I want different actors in the reboots. I do not want to see the same actors. I don't want to see Siler from from Heroes as Spock anymore. And what I was saying is I would be totally cool with somebody doing like kind of a Leonard Nimoy impersonation, just like kind of Alec Guinness, or Ewan McGregor was doing kind of an Alec Guinness impersonation, sort of like he was emulating that voice. Like, I would like to see somebody who's like more similar to Leonard Nimoy and be in it for a few minutes and go on their merry way. Honestly, I agree with that. I don't want the Enterprise to be hanging around the whole season. But I do like, if you're setting it in the same time period as the Enterprise, I would like to know what the Enterprise is up to. So I can definitely understand your frustration with it ending that way and it seeming too fan servicey, but I'm okay overall with bringing the Enterprise into it, as long as we don't focus too much on them.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I'm okay with them bringing the Enterprise. If it was like at the ending of a mid-season episode or just at the start of episode 3 or whatever, but to have it like to be the big finale, that kind of bothered me. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just me, my expectations. I think it just puts more emphasis on it because if you think about Next Generation, like their call was to, and they had a cameo of McCoy in like the very first episode, but it was very low key. It wasn't like, oh, this is, look, it's McCoy. It was a very sort of low key thing. And the rest of Next Generation, their like mandate was to get away from the original series. They had that episode was just like Naked Time. But other than that, their mandate was to get away from the original series and try to stand on its own feet. And Discovery, and for the most, Discovery's been doing a lot of like these references to other track shows. And some of them are fine. Other ones rubbed me the wrong way, but none of them were that bad. But to me, it's accumulation of all those in this is making me think, come on. It's like, I think it's because they feel the need to prove to the audience that they're a Star Trek show because there's so many vocal people saying this isn't Star Trek. And so they're countering that by saying, oh, look, it's the Enterprise. And I think they need to stand on their own feet and not rely too much on that.
I agree with that. I don't want to rely too much on it. But I also, since if you're setting it here, I want to not pretend the Enterprise doesn't exist either. Like I want to know what it's up to, but then go on its merry way and let's focus on Discovery.
Yeah, I mean, what I hope to see out of the storyline with the Enterprise is character building for our characters. I don't want the main focus to be taken off of them. Look, oh, there's Spock. I want them, anything that happens, I want it to relate to our main storyline instead of the storyline with the characters we know and discover. Because if you want to show Pike, make a show called The Adventures of Captain Pike. If you have a show called Discovery, let's keep the focus on Discovery. And and also not too many of these other like references that are just in there to get you. Like, I don't want to say, so we just came back for this planet where Pike was in a menagerie. I was like, I don't want to hear anything like that.
Yeah, I don't want anything like that either. I mean, let's not go overboard with the old references. Let's keep it a little low key. You're on mute, Mark.
Here? Okay, cool. So the last thing I want to touch on is there's a lot of speculation who the captain's going to be. And you might have noticed, like in my review, I didn't speculate. And that's because I don't really care to. Because, well, my speculation is that it's going to be a new character. And they haven't written this new character yet. And they haven't cast it yet. So that's why we don't see it. And because they're picking him up on Vulcan, him or her, on Vulcan doesn't necessarily mean it is a Vulcan. It could, it could be anyone. We don't know. And I hope that it is an original character that we have not even heard about before. And they don't try to be like, oh, look, it's, I want it to be like a new character that sort of becomes the captain, but keep the focus somehow on Burnham and Saru and find a way to sort of integrate this new captain into the crew that way.
Yeah, I think most likely it is going to be a brand new character. Maybe a character hasn't even been conceived of yet, not even cast yet. I never thought just because they were going to Vulcan that it was a Vulcan captain. In fact, it didn't even cross my mind that it would be a Vulcan captain. I assumed that that's just where this Federation captain is, so they're going to pick him up there or her. So I would actually rather not be a Vulcan captain, honestly, but. I don't know, but I would like to see something a little different. But what did you think of my Spinal Tap theory, where Discovery could just be killing all these captains off until eventually Michael Burnham gets to be captain later in the series?
I actually like that theory. I actually do. That sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, and another thing that I said, it could be like I could totally see them having this other captain, whoever random person, And then, you know, they run into Prime Lorca, and Prime Lorca comes on the ship, and then some disaster happens. That captain gets killed, and then Prime Lorca takes over as captain of Discovery. I could see them doing that as well.
I mean, I could see myself changing my mind, but as of now, I wouldn't be that big on a Prime Lorca becoming the captain again, because I think we got enough of Lorca being captain. Plus, it'd be weird seeing Jason Isaacs play like the good version of Lorca. That'd be a bit weird. I think for me personally, I'd rather see him in a cameo rather than being like a regular cast member again. But I don't know. If they did it right, they could change my mind on this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how I would feel about it either until I saw it, but it's just a possible thing I could see them do. Or we could just have these rotating until eventually they're just like, all right, Michael Burnham, you can be captain. And Saru will be like, hey, what about me?
Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and end this discussion, and we'll end it out with just some. I know we talked a bit about what we think season 2 might have been in, but just some vague thoughts of what we hope to see in season 2 overall. Now we'll start with you.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, so, well, I definitely, going into the finale, I wanted Michael Burnham to be reinstated. I definitely thought we needed that. So, it's just, you know, I don't really know what to expect now. What I would like to see is whatever new captain that they bring on. I think that it needs to be. I don't know. There needs to be something that fits in well with the other. That I don't know. That creates good drama with the other characters. You can't just have some. I don't know. I don't want to see an uninteresting captain. I honestly don't want to see a Captain Kirk or a Captain Janeway or a Captain Picard. Like, I want to see. That's what I loved about Lorca. He ended up being from the Mirror Universe, but that he was kind of interesting. Different. So I want to see something a little different. I want them to continue to be more innovative as they were in the first season, by not having just one captain and having your main character not be a captain. I want to see them come up with more things like that in season 2, where you're breaking away from the original mold. I don't want it to turn into they're just going around exploring planets and beaming down and you know, here's another new race we haven't seen before, and here's this thing. Here's an interesting situation on this planet. I don't want it to turn into that. So what it is going to be about, I'm not clear on that. I'm not sure where they're going to go from here. I don't think we've seen the end of L'Rell and Ash Tyler, so the Klingon stuff isn't going away, but there's not a war to focus on anymore. So what exactly is going to be the focus of season 2? I don't know. But I actually don't have any really ideas for what it's going to be. But I would like to see it just continue to be interesting and innovative, and I want to see some interesting characters. I want to see an interesting captain. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and for me, just in a vague sense, like I just hope that they do, like you said, keep up this serialized format and have another storyline. Maybe they could do it like you said, anthology, where every season does a different storyline. I have no issue with that, but I'd like to see a uniform storyline in season 2 that hopefully the writers, producers will have more time to set it up properly, and they would have had their little learning growing pains in season 1, and learn from that and come up with something better in season 2 that's more unified and has less pacing issues. And I hope that what I really want is, I hope that they don't go back, set the character growth backwards. Like, I don't want Saru and Burnham to all of a sudden start fighting and hating each other again. They've grown close to, so I want them to continue that growth, which typically Star Trek has done. So hopefully Discovery will continue that tradition. And as I said, the side characters who just say, "Oh, I Captain," expand them more, and expand Stamets more, expand his story, and just expand everything more, and keep going, and not sidetrack and try to back around, backstep the characters to make things gritty. Like, and if you want to have a less gritty feel, then that's fine as long as it's in keeping with the character stories that were established in season 1.
And you know what? Not a lot of people probably say this, but I'm actually interested to see how Tilly develops, because I would say like at least the last 2 Star Trek series before this had like the young, inexperienced guy. Enterprise had, I think, it's Travis, right? The black dude.
Yes, yeah.
And then Voyager had Harry Kim, which Harry Kim was my absolute least favorite character. I don't know. It was, and then of course Next Generation had Wesley Crusher, so it was always like the young, inexperienced person, like the goofy. Hey, I don't know what's going on. It's like, but Tilly to me is the best of that character type, in my opinion. So I would like, I'm interested to see how she develops, and I'm actually interested to see how all the characters develop.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that. I think Tilly is sort of the best of that type of, the new. And yeah, I think it's ridiculous to make her a cadet in the first one, but at least she's not.
I don't understand. Why was she a cadet on a starship? Oh, it's now. Why was she? I don't get that. Why could she not be an ensign?
Anyway, let's go ahead and end the discussion here. I want to thank everyone in the chat for joining. Everyone who's watching this archives, thank you so much for joining. And Akton, of course, thank you for joining. Just want to real quick plug your channel, what you're up to, which I know you're not up to much now Discovery's over, but just quick where people can find you.
Yeah, you can check out Akton Tamko's channel. You can watch, you can go back and watch some of my Discovery reviews from previously. And I've also covered shows, of course, Game of Thrones, Mr. Robot, The Leftovers. And I've done full season reviews of Star Trek The Next Generation. Each season of Next Generation, I did a full review. I also did my top 25 best, top 10 worst Next Generation. So you can check out all that if you're into Star Trek. Now, as far as what's in the future, laying low a little bit. Waiting for The Expanse to come on. I don't know when that's happening. I probably will want to cover that a little bit. But in the meantime, probably not a whole lot on my channel coming out new. But if you haven't seen all of those great stuff that's already on the channel, you should check it out.
Cool. Is it too early? Do you want to announce what we have planned coming up in a couple of weeks?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we do have. We haven't set a time yet, but we're looking at probably February 25th, I think.
Yeah, around that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a first annual Acted and Enchantment of Eternity Oscar preview. Where we're going to primarily focus on Best Picture. We're going to talk about all the movies that are nominated for Best Picture. I think we talked about maybe we might briefly touch on some of the actor awards, and I know Mark also wants to talk about some of the snubs as well. But it will be primarily focused on the 9 films that were nominated for Best Picture, and that's going to be 1 week before the Oscars, so February 25th. We'll let you guys know on the time. We haven't figured that out yet.
Cool. And if you guys don't know me, Mark, my channel's Enchantment of Eternity. You can check my channel out. Discovery's over, but I continue to do random Star Trek episode reviews, and I'm going to cover Babylon 5, the first 5 seasons of Babylon 5 on a monthly basis. I'm going to get back into doing Game of Thrones videos soonish, eventually. And I do doing a series of The Expanse videos, which apparently, like season 3 of The Expanse, I heard may not even come back till June, which is a real bummer. That might be that far away, but when it does, I'll be there to cover The Expanse and do a whole bunch of other random videos, so make sure to check out my channel for that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.